Hey friends, welcome back to the Work from Homesteader. Today, I can figure out how to put my apron on. Today we are going to make enchiladas. Now, I am not Mexican, or can I claim to be any part, but I do enjoy Mexican food, and so this is not going to be authentic. I'm just going to put that out here right now. So feel free to critique this. If you are Mexican or you make Mexican food a lot and you have like a lot of good ideas, I would love your input. But I'm going to show you how I make it for my family. And right now I'm going to make it with chicken. I prefer beef usually, or like a chorizo enchilada, honestly. However, I am going to make soup later this week, and I needed something else to use the rest of the chicken with. And so I figured, why not make chicken enchiladas? It sounded really good. And so that's what we're going to do. So when I make my chicken, I usually make whole chicken. I'm not a big fan of chicken breast. If I like get piece chicken, I'm much more of a chicken thighs kind of gal. It has a lot more flavor, a lot more moisture. But I find that as like a mom who's busy, the easiest way to cook chicken is to just throw it right in the Instapot. And I just cook it for like 20 minutes or so on pressure cook. Super easy. This is the organic chicken, and I know some of you might be asking me like, why don't you just get the rotisserie chicken? For me, I don't like all of the additives and junk that they pump into those chickens, and so I just don't do that. However, I mean, sometimes in a pinch, I will pick them up, but I find that this is just like 20 minutes in the Instapot. It's super easy to do. So I'm going to keep the spices super simple because like I said, I'm putting it in a soup later this week. If I was just making the enchiladas, I would probably do like more like paprika, maybe some chili spice, something like that. However, I'm just going to keep it super simple. I'm going to cover this chicken in water because I want to get the maximum amount of flavor for broth later on. So we'll pick this chicken when it's done, and we'll put the bones back in. We'll add a little bit more water, some veggie scraps, and we'll run it overnight for some bone broth as well. And the other reason I'm adding a lot of water now is because I'm also going to be taking some of the broth that is produced when we first cook the chicken and put it into the enchilada sauce because it's going to add a lot of flavor and a lot of nutrients as well. So I'm just going to put this on for about 20-25 minutes and let it cook. Okay, so while the chicken goes, which is still waiting to come up to pressure, I am going to get my tortilla started. So I'm going to get the dough going. Now, ever since I started making my tortillas from scratch, it's like one of those things I just cannot go back to store-bought tortillas. They're just not the same. They don't have the same texture. They're just not as good. So it's worth the effort. It's a little bit more work for sure. I'm not going to lie. However, once you like do it multiple times, it really doesn't, it's not that bad. And you kind of get in the swing of it. So I use butter. I don't use lard. I haven't really found a lard in the store that I like that doesn't seem like overly processed. If I can find something local, I would definitely use that. That is more traditional though. I think you can also use oil, which if I'm feeling really lazy and I don't feel like melting butter, I will sometimes use oil. I don't like it as much. So I'm going to just put a stick of butter in here. And if you've been around this channel for a while, you know, I do not measure like almost anything. So I will put like a recipe in the description that I like roughly follow if you're looking to like recreate this. However, I always find that like, especially things with like bread and whatnot, just kind of knowing how things should feel and look is really the best way to do it because it's always honestly just the best way. So I'm just going to pour probably like 2 to 3 cups in here. And then I'm going to just fill this with some water and put some salt in here. Now, you do not want to put like all of your water in right away because you want to just see how it's absorbing it and put it a little bit more by a little bit more. You can also do this by hand. You do not need a mixer at all. I just find it easier. There are a lot of breads that I do prefer to do by hand, but tortillas, I just find easier to throw with a dough hook and throw it in my mixer. Okay, so you don't want it sticky. And this seems, it's not sticky at all. And I just know it's going to roll out. I know it's going to roll out really well. I often will add sourdough starter to this, and I honestly meant to, but I just totally forgot. Which I'll like let this sit and ferment for a while. I've got dinner to be on the table pretty soon here. So I wouldn't let it ferment anyways at this point. I was hoping to get to some of the stuff earlier today, but it just, life with kids, that's what happens. So I'm just gonna let this sit for a second, then I'm gonna roll them into dough balls. I honestly don't always like roll them into balls, let them rest, and then roll them out. Sometimes I just like put them into balls, roll them out right away. The best thing that you can do is to let them rest a little bit. However, sometimes like life just happens and you have to start rolling them out to get dinner on the table. And I can tell you that it's just fine doing it that way as well. All right, so I'm going to portion these out. Now, I don't make them too big, only because I don't have like a big enough cast iron to cook it evenly with heat. I need to look into getting something like specifically that I can make for tortillas, because it would honestly be like so clutch to be able to make like really big burrito sized tortillas. Both the enchiladas, it's probably okay that they're a little bit on the smaller side anyways. So that's just something just to be aware of if you're cooking on your stove, that you will just need a bigger pan to make bigger size tortillas and figure out how to get your stove to do even heat. Now, by no means, again, do I make the perfect tortillas, but my family loves them. They provide us extra nutrition that the processed stuff in the store certainly doesn't. And so I just really enjoy making my own. All right, I let these rest for a little bit, not probably long enough, but I want to get dinner going. So I'm going to roll these out. Now, I was watching some videos yesterday because I saw these, this like burrito compilation video. I'll put in the description or I'll put the link in the description because honestly, these burritos looked bomb. But I was watching them roll out their tortillas, and basically I'm going to get these out of the way so you can hopefully see what I'm doing. But basically what they did is they like squashed it into like an arepa size, kind of like, and then they did like, they pinched down the bottom so it kind of looks like a pasty or something, and then or like a ravioli, and then that kind of like sets the edge so it's like more rounded when you roll it out. We'll see if this actually makes a difference. But mine are like never perfectly circular. I'm not sure this is actually making a difference here. I think I also probably could have rolled mine out into nicer little balls too. But once you learn how to roll out tortillas, you can get it done pretty quickly. And you want them pretty thin so that you might need to kind of coat them in flour a little bit as you roll because they'll get a little bit sticky. But you want them pretty thin so that they're not like a pita or like a wrap thickness. So you want to like almost be able to see through them. At least that's kind of like based on my experience. Now, you want a pretty hot cast iron going or whatever you're going to be using, because you don't want it to cook too long on there. I usually cook mine for like no more than a minute per side, usually less, especially as the like heat kind of keeps going. Watch out, baby, the stove is hot. You want to eat? All right, so I'm going to get started on my enchilada sauce. I'm going to use 2 large cans of crushed tomatoes. You can use tomato sauce. This is just what Aldi has in large cans, so that's what I chose. I'm also going to put an ancho chili in there. I'm going to pull this out probably after like 10-15 minutes so it doesn't get too spicy, but I really just kind of want the flavor in there. Ideally, I'm like letting this sit for like 2 hours. However, I just didn't get my act together enough to let this sit for a long time, but that will be what I will do in the future. I'm going to make a larger batch so I can freeze them so I have some in the future. And I'm going to add about 2 cups of chicken broth directly from the chicken that just came out of the Instapot. I'm going to turn that off so it doesn't keep heating, because the automatic setting will keep it warm. You want to turn it off so it cools down enough with the chicken so you can pick it. Otherwise it just is piping hot. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of oil in here, probably about 1/4 cup. I'm going to put what's left of my avocado oil. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic powder. If I was feeling up to it, I would have cut some up, but I'm just not feeling it. I'm going to put just a touch of chipotle chili pepper. This stuff is pretty spicy. Like a little goes a long way. And I'm really hoping that my kids also eat this, so I don't want to make it too spicy. I'm going to taste test it in like 10 minutes and see where the spice level is at. I might add a little bit more, but with the ancho chili and the chipotle, I don't want it to be too much. I'm going to put some paprika in here, some smoked paprika, probably about 1.5 tablespoons or so, and then some salt. And a little bit of cumin. I'm going to try and save my brand new pot by not using metal utensils on it. I get a lot of flack about my yellow sourdough dish or like my other cast iron that I cook with. It has a lot of stains on it. It's been used and loved a lot over the years. But I still have it. I got this for Christmas, so I'm going to put them to use. However, I am not shamed about my yellow pot. I know it's a little bit stained, but it still works well, and I don't like to toss things that still have their use. And this is where you just kind of start to adjust the spices based on what you like. But I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes, come to a boil a little bit, turn it down to a simmer, and that should really get some of that flavor. Okay, I ended up finding my cumin and my coriander seeds, so I'm just mashing them up really quick. I have to say I love my mortar and pestle. You kind of seem like it looks like it's complicated to use or like would take a lot of time, but it really doesn't. And having fresh ground spices just truly makes such a difference. All right, so we are in the home stretch. I picked some of the chicken off camera and I put a little bit of the enchilada sauce in there. And I'm gonna actually just throw it onto my cast iron skillet. I have the oven heating up to 350. And so I'm just gonna put a little bit of my chicken filling in here. And I kind of want to put it towards the end here so I can roll it up easily. And I got the Chihuahua cheese. I find that it melts the best for like Mexican food, and it doesn't have a really strong flavor like a sharp cheddar might. And I like very cheesy enchiladas. And so I'm just going to kind of load up on the cheese both inside and on top. And so I guess I'll do that a little bit slower. So I always like push to one end and then I tuck under sides sides, and roll. And because we made these fresh, we really shouldn't have too much issue with them like breaking apart like you might with the store-bought ones. And so I'm just going to kind of squish these in here. And I'm going to do about half chicken, half cheese. I think my kids might like the cheese a little bit better. And sometimes I honestly just prefer a cheese enchilada. I don't know if it's just like the kid in me that just really likes cheese, or maybe it's the Wisconsinite. But I love just like a gooey, cheesy enchilada. All right, so I'll show you kind of how we're looking so far. So these are really stacked in there, nice and tight. Going to ladle in the rest of it, I think. I always find it hard to figure out the balance of enough sauce because you don't want it to be too soggy, but you also don't want it to be too dry. And I tend to not put enough, so I always try to like make myself put just a little bit more than I think I need. So that's about where I think I'm getting uncomfortable with the amount of cheese or the amount of sauce on there. And so hopefully that's a good amount there. And I'm going to cover the rest of this with cheese. We'll stick it in the oven. Since everything's cooked, we're really just trying to get everything melty and gooey and kind of get those tortillas cooked in the sauce a little bit. So we're just going to kind of keep an eye on it. In she goes. All right, so it is ooey-gooey melty. And I am going to plate some up. Oh, very cheesy. Show you the inside. All right, let's do a taste test, see how they turned out. Those are good. I'm wishing I made some rice and beans to go with us all, but these turned out really good, and I will definitely make that enchilada sauce again. So if you enjoyed this video, I do make videos like this every week. I would appreciate if you would leave a comment below if there's anything that you learned or anything that you think I can improve on this enchilada recipe. And it's always very helpful for me if you share this with your friends, you like, and if you subscribe if you want to stick around and see more videos. I hope to see you guys in the next video.